No house is ever fully up to code, even if it was just built yesterday. So let's talk about what actually matters and when to freak out. Today we have Hans Coleman with 5281, a step above inspections. Thanks for being here, Hans.
Always a pleasure. I love it.
So we want to talk about codes.
Mm.
It's a complicated subject, I think,
Mm.
that people have a lot of thoughts about, but not a lot of facts. And I'm in that same boat. Like I have thoughts about codes and how they work and whatever, but like I don't feel like I have a lot of facts. So maybe we start off with can you just kind of generally describe like what is a code?
Yeah, so like building codes, so let's say you're putting a hot water heater together. What are the current codes? What are the clearances for heat shields and things like that? Or, what angle your vent should be at? Should you have an expansion tank or not an expansion tank? Do you need a drip pan or not a drip pan? It's all these things are written in a book somewhere that says, okay, well, if you were within 10 feet of a finished area, then your water heater needs to be in a drip pan. Those kind of things that's kind of what we're looking for and basing a lot of things off of.
And so all of the codes are really coming from this idea of a building department that has put in place these codes or standards to build buildings that they think make the building safe and structurally sound.
Correct. Yeah.
And then once they put those in place, then how often are they updating it? Because it seems like they change a lot. So are they just updating it anytime they get new information, or is it like once a year or
It's not once a year, but I think what they're doing, and realistically, I apologize, I don't 100% know the answer to that question. However, what I can say is though, I think that what they do is they wait for a whole bunch of changes to happen at the same time. And then they'll release a whole new code when there's maybe more than 30 changes that needs to be done, whatever it is, 30 safety changes, whatever that number is, then they'll release a new code. So it could be every 5 years, it could be every 7 years. I would say 7 years is kind of a typical standard. Electric and plumbing code, that kind of thing has a tendency of changing every about 7 years.
Oh, okay. And so you mentioned electrical and plumbing. Do the trades or the different professions, obviously they're working on different pieces of the house, so they have different codes that apply to the piece that they're working on. Do they just go by what the building department says is the code, or are they also looking at, like, professional standards in their own industry of what needs to be happening?
Both, and there's actually a whole nother component to that is where you live. Littleton is not going to be the same as Highlands Ranch, or Highlands Ranch is not going to be the same as Arvada or Northglenn. So the municipalities themselves determine on what we want to enforce and what we don't want to enforce. It's very strange.
Well, and I think that that has to do with the fact that, general contractors or GCs, they're licensed. They are licensed by location. So it stands to reason that if they go get their license in Littleton or in Highlands Ranch or in Arvada or Aurora, that they're only able to get that license by I mean, are they testing them? Is there some sort of test of like these are the standards in Littleton and then they have to pass the test to get their license?
Yeah, for general contractors, but not necessarily the people that the general contractor hires.
All the subcontractors,
Yeah.
and the subcontractors are all of those specialty trades.
They're the people that are actually in there doing the work, but the general contractor is ultimately responsible for what those guys know and what they don't know.
So the subcontractors, plumber, electrician, all these people, they are doing the work under the guidance of the general contractor. And if they are doing something that's not up to the code in that city, then it's falls on the general contractor to correct it,
Yep.
basically.
Yeah, and the general contractor will contact the subcontractor, and then they come back out and they make the fixes. And the frustrating thing is when, the city comes out to look at a code, is the city won't tell you what the issue is. They just throw their hands up in the air and says, "It's not to code." And you're like,
Oh,
"What's not to code? What is not up to code? It's not my job to figure it out. It's yours. You should know."
oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's so weird. How they do that is so strange.
So, are there any houses like if I wanted to go shopping for a house, could I find a house that is all up to code?
I I've been doing this for close to 20 years, so 18 years now I've been doing this, and I don't think I have ever seen one house that has been 100% code correct. I No.
So you're saying that even when you go into new builds to look around and poke around at things and check it out, that you're oftentimes seeing problems that you know are an issue, but but also we know that you don't even know all the codes.
It's
You only know what you know.
what a fine line that we walk on, right? Yeah, yeah. And then the frustrating thing is that when somebody comes back to you and says, "Well, the electrician said they got a permit and the city said it was fine." Yeah, but the city didn't actually look at it. The city doesn't go around and check every single electrical outlet. They just look at there and they're like, "Okay, I think this looks pretty good." Sign and move on. So who's wrong?
Yeah, and also that you bring up this permitting issue, which I also wanted to talk about because, what is the permit? Is the permit supposed to make sure that it's up to code? It sounds like no.
It's supposed to.
Okay, so that is the point of the permit.
That is the point of the permit, that if you're building in, say, 2025, let's say you're doing a renovation on a house on 1950, you can't currently build in 2025 to 1950 code
Mhm.
because so many safety features have changed. So many, well, just about everything has practically changed. I can't put aluminum wiring in 1970 like we had in the 1970s home. We can't put that in the 2025 home anymore.
Mhm.
So many things have changed. You have to bring it up to what would you be considered current code.
What do you mean you have to? When do you have to?
When you build in 2025,
Oh, yeah, okay.
you have to, at that point, you have to build it up to 2025 standards,
Standards.
not 1950 standards.
Well, and that makes sense. So now who is it that so you go and you pull a permit or you apply for a permit with the city. And I think either homeowners or general contractors can do that. Is that your
Mhm.
understanding as
Uh,
well?
I think it's more general contractors would do that, but yeah, homeowners can do it if you're building up vents.
I mean, let's be real here. A lot of people are doing work to their homes and they might be hiring people to do work to their homes who might not be licensed as a GC, and there's no permits being pulled. So I want to make that clear because I feel like sometimes I've been shopping with buyers and they think, "Oh, well, I wanna know if all this work that we see that looks like it's newly renovated, I wanna make sure this was all permitted," and it's kinda like, well,
Right.
it might have been, but it also might not have been,
Right.
and either way, it's sort of a buyer beware situation, like,
Yeah.
it's up to the buyer to do their due diligence and say, like, whether or not it's up to code, is this all safe?
Yeah, that's
Or how
that's that's what a home inspector is for. Is realistically that is our job title right there. Is this house safe to live in?
Yeah.
Do we have carbon monoxide running throughout the house? Is there major electrical issues that's going to actually hurt somebody? Is that deck going to fall down tomorrow? Kind of a deal. I mean, that's what we're for. We're not code enforcement officers. We're not any of that kind of stuff. We are there to find out if everything is safe for you to be there.
Yeah, and I think that's a good distinction that people should know because, we've had clients come back, after they've closed on a deal and said, "Oh, well, I found out XYZ is wrong with my home, but, the inspector should have told me that." And 9 times out of 10, it is in their report. But
As we learned, yes.
9 times out of 10, the problem was listed in their report. They just chose not to do anything about it at the time. Um,
That also goes back to one of the episodes we did, a few months ago, which was read your inspection report. Don't go down to those last 7 pages. Read every single page. Look at the pictures, look at everything. Just don't focus fully on the negatives. Focus on the inspection report.
yeah, so you can get like the whole
Yeah.
view of what's happening with the
Yes.
home. I wanted to go back to the permitting for a second because we were talking about pulling permits. Um, but then you had said something earlier to me about, it's like I think if you pull permits, then when you get done with the work, somebody from the city comes out to make sure the work was done properly and up to code, and then they sign off on it. Um, but it sounded like you were saying that there is not like a permits are opened or closed. Like you can see if a permit has been pulled, but it's much more difficult to find out if that full step was taken
Mhm.
to have the inspector come out and check on things. So even if you can see that permits were pulled, that might not necessarily mean that anybody came out and checked on the final product.
100% correct. You're exactly right. Who comes out and checks to make sure that the general contractor that you just hired does the work? I would strongly say to the people that are purchasing the homes or the people that are going through that process to check with the general contractor and say, hey, when is that city inspector going to come out and look at this and make sure that it's all done correctly so he can sign off on that permit and therefore that permit is now officially closed?
So, this is a pro tip. If you've got somebody pulling permits and doing work at your house, then you should definitely make sure that at some point that city inspector has been called to come back and sign off on things. Um, I wanted to also talk about this. You mentioned it earlier about homes being grandfathered in. So, can you talk a little bit about exactly what that means? Because what it means to me is that they are not. Like, it's so old that they're not required to be up to today's standards.
Yeah, that's so let's just say I do an inspection for on a 1950s home. And of course all of the basements in 1950s have the windows that are
Tiny.
like this big. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you can't even fit your head through them kind of a deal. Well, of course nowadays we can't have windows like that. You can have windows like that, but you still need to have egress windows. You need to have something that's a human can get into, crawl out of, get into, big enough for somebody to get into, and then of course now a ladder so you can get up and out. So when I do an inspection, yes, I could call that out as an egress. So you need to have an emergency egress. But realistically, in 1950, an egress wasn't required. So where do you draw the line of the things I'm going to say it in my inspection report because you should. It's a safety issue. And like I said, we're here for your safety. So we're going to bring it out. But is the homeowner required to bring it up to 2025 standards because because the house is being sold in 2025? No.
Well, yeah, and I was gonna say, like, that's a question for me as the real estate person, and, and no, we absolutely do not care if things are up to code. We are selling a product. It's not that I don't care, like, obviously, I wouldn't wanna sell something that's unsafe, but that's for the buyer and their inspector to figure out, are there safety issues, and can we live with them or not? Or how much do we wanna ask the seller to fix something, or how much should we plan to spend to fix this later to make sure that it is more safe?
Exactly.
But none of this type of stuff would ever hold up a deal. Like, it would never cause us to not close.
And nor should it. Realistically, it shouldn't hold up the deal because it's not the homeowners, uh, the seller's responsibility to bring it up to 2025 standards. It would be great if they did, of course, that'd be awesome. But are they required to? No, they don't
Now,
have to.
what they are required to do is if an appraiser finds something so egregiously
Mm.
unsafe that they make it a condition of closing, And we had this happen recently. I actually didn't even know this could happen on conventional loans. But an appraiser came out and the state of the deck was such that, I mean, I knew it was unsafe. I had the whole thing taped off and like I didn't want anybody going out there during showings.
Mm.
We knew it probably wasn't safe as lay people, right? So the appraiser comes out there and goes, "Oh, that is unsafe. You cannot close until you fix that." And thank goodness he allowed us to, the fix was to just remove the entire
Yeah.
deck and get rid of it. So now you have a patio door on the second floor that is blocked off and screwed shut because there's nothing to go out
Why
onto.
not?
Right. But so that's a situation in which a seller would be required to make some sort of, code updates. Um, but it's only because the appraiser is requiring it, not because anybody from the city or any of the
Yeah.
realtors, like none of us
Or the
requiring
inspector?
it.
In this particular case, did the sellers, oh, I apologize, did the homeowners, the in this case, did the buyers that were buying the house, did they get an inspection, and did that show up in the inspection report that the deck is not safe
I'm sure
before it got to appraisal?
I didn't see it in the inspection, but it was so visually clear
Yeah.
that there's problems with the deck, and I had a sign that was like, "Please don't go out here for safety concerns." So it was very clear that, the deck was not great and the new buyer would need to take that on.
Okay.
And so we priced it to reflect that,
Oh, okay.
you know, or we try to anyway.
Yeah, yeah. I can understand. Yeah.
So, so when do codes actually matter in an inspection?
I For me, I would say anything that has to do with safety issues. So for me, I really care about the water heater and the furnace. Those two things have a tendency being the things that can actually hurt you.
Well, those are the 2 things that can explode, right?
They can explode. You can get carbon monoxide gas. You can get natural gas issues, leaking, that kind of stuff. So those are the two things that I would say are kind of in my thought process would be non-negotiables for permitting, complete permitting. Have the people come back out there and sign off saying yes, it was done, that kind of thing. But a permit to build a fence, and I'm probably gonna get in trouble for this, but a permit to build a fence, dude, just put up your fence. Enjoy. But you're
Well,
required to have a permit to put up a fence. Okay.
I think it's like, I mean, you know what it reminds me of is those small towns that, drop down their speed limit from, 75 to 35 real quick.
Yeah, and like a one block.
And then there's always cops around, and it's like, and in my mind, I'm like, "This is how this town is making money. There's nothing else here. It's a tiny little town. There's, not much economy to speak of. So they must be making revenue. The city's making revenue by having these cops give out speeding tickets all the time." And I mean, just to be honest, it feels like that about permitting. It feels like it's a revenue stream for a city to make some money. Like whoever they can get to, pay them to build a fence. It's like a premium. It's
Yep.
almost like protection money. But the kicker is the enforcement because I don't think any or many cities have much code enforcement to go out and actually see, to notice there wasn't a fence there last week, now there's a fence. They didn't pull a permit. I'm gonna make them do that now. I don't think that happens,
But I would say you're not wrong. I don't think ultimately. I think the odds are heavily in your favor that you're going to get away with it.
but it could happen.
But it could happen
Yeah.
because all cities have code enforcement. It literally is what those guys do. That's what they do is they run around and they try and find little things like that. So I know Inglewood does. I know Aurora does. Denver does. Um, then the list just goes on and on.
Okay.
Now, if you're in, like, Watkins, Illinois or something like that, in that little cow dung town in the middle of nowhere that it's gonna take them 6 hours to get to, yeah, you're probably not gonna have that guy show up at your front door. So, yeah, you could get away with it, but
Yeah.
we're gonna get in trouble for even talking about this. City's coming after us tomorrow. "Your house, Sonny."
So, when a buyer gets an inspection report back or they're talking to you at the end of the inspection and you're saying, I found X, Y, and Z not up to code, like when is that of concern to the buyer versus not such a big deal? Like when should the buyer freak out?
I would say the buyer needs to freak out when it's a safety issue, when somebody can actually really get hurt from this. Like maybe I find the carbon monoxide is coming back into the house, or maybe the carbon monoxide wasn't vented outside of the house correctly, it's terminating inside the attic. When somebody can actually physically get hurt, that's the time to be like, really, we need to get this fixed. Like, this is an actual safety issue. It's time to get this fixed. We shouldn't close on this house until this item is fixed.
That reminds me, and some of this stuff is really subjective, right? Because I had another deal where the appraiser came out, and as a condition of closing, they required that the trip hazard be remediated on the back patio. And so, like, the back patio was concrete, but it had cracked over time and shifted. There might have been tree roots or something that were like lifting it up. And so this trip hazard, the seller had to have somebody come out and like shave it down and put some more concrete in it to make it smooth before we could close. And that's not something that I would have said, "Oh, that's a really big deal. Like, let's ask the seller to fix that." I would never have thought of that as a big deal. And I was kind of surprised that the appraiser made it a condition of closing. But I think it just goes to show how much of this stuff can be subjective sometimes.
You and I have actually had this at one of our inspections where that shift from the driveway to the garage happened, and it was quite a big shift. I remember it being more, so I will bring it up and call it out when it's higher than 2 inches.
Mhm.
'Cause, we're creatures of habit, so we walk the way that we walk because that's how we walk, and we're so used to it. We only lift our feet so much to get to that next step. We're not used to having to do this, so that's when we trip. So we know when something's wrong. So if we're tripping over it, then it becomes an issue.
Yeah.
But we've had that before on multiple of actually of our inspection reports that it's a tripping hazard. But it's interesting that appraiser nailed that. I can see a VA or an FHA, but not a conventional appraiser.
That one might have been an FHA appraiser.
Sure.
The deck was a conventional appraiser for sure. Because I was just so shocked. I was like, it's kind of fun. I consider myself to be pretty knowledgeable in my field, but I'm always still learning stuff, which can be fun. But yeah, that one shocked me. I was like, "You're making us do what?"
Yeah. Yeah. And, but at least with, an appraiser, um, when the job gets done, they at least come back out and look at it to see if it's been done, unlike a, um, code enforcement officer.
That's true because we've had to move out, closing deadlines and closing dates to allow for the appraiser to come back out and make sure that whatever they said had to be done was done. So, this whole thing about like what needs to be brought up to code before selling or that you would convey a house, more fully up to code is just, a lot of that is based on the inspection period where if the inspector calls out safety items, then the buyer can ask for them or not, because it's never required to ask for inspection objection items.
Mhm.
And then that next step is the appraiser coming out. But again, it depends on who's out there and how big of a deal they think it is.
But at least somebody got the safety issue corrected and enforced, so can't complain with that.
Right.
Frustrating, but great result, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. Frustrating process, but at least we got it done.
I mean, sometimes when you force sellers to do something before closing, it's not always the best result that you would have if you were doing it. Like if the buyer was doing it and they knew they're going to live there for a long time, like The fix on that trip hazard with the patio is one of the ugliest concrete jobs that I have ever seen. And it was like, well, I guess we'll call the appraiser back out and see if he says yes. And he said yes. But certainly, if the appraiser hadn't said anything, the buyer may have moved in and decided to fix that themselves and done a much better job fixing it, because the sellers are going to fix it as cheaply as possible every time.
Yeah, we call that the homeowner special.
Oh, is that what we call
That's
it?
that's what we call it. I don't know about you, but that's what we call it. We're like, "This homeowner did this." Yep, I can see it.
I always call that DIY. This looks very DIY.
Sure, that's another way of saying it. Yeah, that's the political way of saying it.
Well, I hope that we've been able to give the viewers a better idea about what codes are, the permitting, how that factors into home sales and how it doesn't.
Mhm.
And I think the bottom line here is just knowing that you're never going to find a home that's all up to code, even the new ones. So I think that's kind of the bottom line here.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. Always fun to help people out.
Well, if you find yourself in need of a home inspector or home inspection, whether you're buying a house or maybe you're getting ready to list and you want to do a pre-list inspection, highly recommend Hans Coleman. Dude, Aunt. Highly recommend Hans Coleman 5281, a step above inspections. And thanks for being here today.
Always my pleasure. I love it.
If you like this content and want to support the channel, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go.